Whenever y'all are.
Go for it.
Testing. Hello. Welcome.
Perfect.
Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Jamie Weckner, citizen of Dare County, and this is Macy Chabot. We have League of Women Voters here with us this evening, and most importantly, all the way up from Raleigh, Common Cause, North Carolina. Thank you for being here with us tonight. A short summary in how they landed here in Dare County, I will share. I had the honor of attending one of their events back in February over in Wake County. It was a thrilling and supremely educational event that I was able to attend, and I thought right then and there they had made their announcement that they'd be going on tour later in the year, to which they did. They enacted a plan and they've been across about 20 counties or so.
This is stop number 18.
Okay, thank you. So 18 counties, one of which is Dare. So again, I'd like to give them a warm welcome. Happy to have them. I feel that overall there's so much to learn from each other, from one another's organizations, from one another's perspectives. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot going on. There's a lot evolving, and especially for somebody as new as myself, only 34 years old, coming into the civic arena, caring to learn more about what the future of all of us looks like. So we appreciate it, and I'll hand it over to Macy.
We'd like to thank College of the Albemarle for hosting us tonight in their beautiful new campus. It's been fun to hold more and more community events here. We've got some local elected officials in the room and some candidates that we hope to hear from tonight, and all of our engaged citizens who made it out on a Sunday evening. So thank you. We will hear from these two folks first. And then we'll open it up for comment if you signed up for comment when you signed in, and or you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand and probably engage in some conversation too. So thank you again.
All right.
Thanks, Macy.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, Jamie and Macy. How are y'all doing tonight? Good. I was usually have to be like, oh, let's try that again, but y'all are ready and willing to be here, which is great. And I'm pleased because I imagine many of y'all are leaving football on Sunday to be with us, and no one has ever chosen me over football, so very pleased to be with you all here tonight. My name is Gino Nuzulila. I work at Common Cause, North Carolina. This is...
I'm Sailor Jones. I work at Common Cause, North Carolina. Good to see you.
And we are a pro-democracy organization. Our one goal, plain and simple, is to strengthen civic engagement in a nonpartisan way all across the state. And we are here, and as we said, this is stop number 18 on a series of town halls that we're doing across the state, because we believe fundamentally that North Carolina should have some say in their government. And in the absence of many of those options, to really comment on dramatic policy changes that will significantly impact our lives, we are trying to put that in place ourselves by hosting town halls all across the state and coming to you to hear what you have to say about some of the policy issues that you will hear tonight. So that is our purpose in these town halls. We're very excited to be with you. Like they were saying at the beginning, we started July 20th. We've been everywhere from Silva North Carolina that is almost more Tennessee than it is North Carolina, to you all that is almost more Atlantic Ocean than it is North Carolina. So we're very pleased to be with you all here tonight. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of an overview of what we're going to do and how the night will go. We will not keep you past 8 p.m. As much as I'd like to keep you here till midnight, my boss won't let me. And so, a tragedy for us all, but I promise we'll keep you here till about 8. So we are going to start with a little bit of presentation to kind of frame why we are here, talk about some of the major policy changes that have taken place, and then the majority of the time we will spend hearing what you have to say. And I'll give you the instructions for that in a little bit, but it is designed not only for those of us in the room to learn from each other and for us to hear from you, but we are also capturing tonight's content on Facebook Live and via video because it is our hope to share these with the lawmakers who represent your area as well. You'll notice that they are not here tonight. We did invite all 3 state lawmakers who represent Dare County. That is, in case you let me get past it. In case you are familiar, we just point this out in the interest of transparency. We invited all 3, Representative Keith Kidwell, Representative Edward Goodwin, and Senator Norman Sanderson. We did receive a declined response from Senator Sanderson. We did not hear from the other 2 representatives after a couple of different attempts. So we are going to be here anyway. We are going to capture what people have to say anyway, and we are going to deliver what people have to say anyway. That is our plan for tonight. But before we get into a couple of these different pieces, as you can see, I've already given the whole presentation. I want to get a sense of who's in the room. What different towns are folks coming from tonight? Shout it out. Manio. Kitty Hawk. Say it. Duh. First, I thought you said Quebec for a second. I was like, I mean, I know we're the hottest stick in the town, but we're not that. No. Southern Shores. Say again? Salvo. Am I saying it right? There we go.
He picked on me, so kill Devil Hills.
Kill Devil Hills. Wonderful. And how many of you, raise your hand if you've heard about something that happened in Raleigh 3.5 hours away this year that you paid attention to or made you feel some type of way? Every single person in the crowd. Absolutely. And I want to ask a few more questions too, because I want to get a good sense of kind of maybe how a few people feel about the issues in this room. We are a nonpartisan organization. We do not focus on parties or partisan politics. It does not interest us. We do care about issues and people's experiences. So I want to ask y'all in the room a couple of questions, and raise your hand if you agree with them. I want you to raise your hand if you care about good public schools for your kids, or for kids that you know. All right. I want you to raise your hand, and you'll have to bear with me, if you want clean air to breathe and safe water to drink. See, you already did it. I want you to raise your hand if you believe that your tax dollars should be reinvested in your community. All right. I'm sensing a pattern here, Sailor. That's good. All come together. And I want to ask you one more question, which is, raise your hand if you believe that you should have a genuine voice in your representation and a vote that matters counts. Okay. All right, so we are all on the same page. And I thank you for bearing with me. I know it is a little bit corny, but the reason we ask those questions, and they're going to mirror what I'm about to talk to you, is the fact of this tour. The reason we call it the Unite North Carolina Tour is because fundamentally and simply, we agree on more than we disagree on. You go and talk to North Carolinians across the state. 1,200 have come to these events so far. You were now part of that. Everybody raises their hand every single time when we ask those basic questions about what we want. Now, the question I will close with is, all those things that we say we believe on and that we agree on, are those things the things you've seen come out of the General Assembly this year? And happy if somebody would like to say that it is. Okay. So, what have we seen come out of the General Assembly this year? Well, we've seen bills, budgets, and maps. I couldn't think of a B word for maps, so I'm going to give you the alliteration. But we have seen a number of significant policy proposals come out of Raleigh this year. And this is just us providing basic information about what those things are. So we'll talk about some of the elections bills. How many of y'all have heard about a bill like SB 747, 749, or redistricting? Does that sound familiar? For those who aren't familiar, these are a suite of policy changes that are going to really impact our elections heading into 2024 in particular. We have more information about this over here on these tables that we'll send you afterward. But a big thing to know is that we have a bill like Senate Bill 747. It was an elections omnibus bill. It was like 25 pages full of different elections changes that are taking place this year. The biggest key to this bill is that it eliminates the 3-day grace period for mail-in ballots. So if you voted by mail before, or if you know someone who's voted by mail, it used to be the case in North Carolina that if you got that postmarked at the post office and sent before Election Day, if it arrived within 3 days, that ballot would count. And it met all the different requirements, as I'm sure Mr. Saunders could tell as well, and met all the other different requirements. That is no longer the case heading into 2024. That is one of the big kind of changes to the rules around voting and mail-in ballots. We also see, kind of from our organization's perspective, a number of additional changes that county boards of elections will face in 2023 and 2024, including, in some counties, maybe there, maybe not, the implementation of what is known as signature verification, the implementation of what are known as voter assistance logs, in many places, the banning of kind of the private use of nonprofit funds. So many county boards of elections in 2020 applied for and received nonprofit grants. Those kinds of donations are now banned. So in many ways, when it comes to our local elections, we believe there is a change through Senate Bill 747 that kind of stretches those budgets even further. In addition, there is Senate Bill 749. This bill, how many of you have heard of Senate Bill 749? Okay, good number of folks. This bill creates even partisan splits on all of your local elections boards, local county boards of elections and state board of election. Currently, all of those boards are 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and then a chair who is from the party of the governor. This bill changes that so that it would be evenly split on the local level and evenly split on the state level. Now, why is this a concern? Why would this be a concern for Common Cause? Why do we believe it's a concern that we're sharing with you? Well, let me ask you, when was the last time you saw the 2 parties agree on anything substantive? Nobody's saying anything, so I will take it as we haven't seen that in a while. What was that?
Wearing a suit in the Senate.
Wearing a suit in the Senate, that is a bipartisan agreement. We hear that this Senate Bill 749 and the changes that it brings to election administration will create now that isn't necessarily what will happen. We fear that that will be the case. And in situations in which gridlock takes place, we believe that major choices around elections may be at risk, or more power may go to the General Assembly. For example, when it comes to early voting plans in all of our 100 counties, those early voting plans are decided by your local board of elections. Most of the time they're unanimous, but sometimes, sorry, Taylor? All good?
Yeah.
Okay. Most of the times they're unanimous, but sometimes there are differences between members of the board about how many early voting sites to have and the hours for those early voting sites. So in a situation in which there is gridlock at the local level and there's gridlock at the state level, under Senate Bill 749, the way it interacts with current laws, it can create a situation in which the default is 1 early voting site per county. That would be open really only during business hours with 1 weekend option. This is what would take place if there's gridlock at the local level and the state level. Defaults to 1 early voting site. Now that's not necessarily going to be the case in all 100 counties, but we believe that that's a kind of impermissible, from our perspective, reduction in access to the ballot box for North Carolinians. And then, of course, How many of you went to Elizabeth City last week to testify at the redistricting public hearing? Sailor did. Sailor's there in Elizabeth City, and I know folks were talking about it. If you can believe it, we are drawing new voting maps again. Now, you all live in North Carolina. You know that the drawing of the new voting maps is supposed to take place once every 10 years. We live in this state where every time the wind blows, we have to draw new voting maps. And that is because usually the party in power, Democrat or Republican, draws the maps to their own advantage. And so we are now in a position again, due to court battles and back and forths, where the legislature will be redrawing your congressional maps, your state house maps, and your state senate maps. And you will vote in different districts in 2024. That process is supposed to wrap up by the end of October. Now, we are a democracy organization. We focus on voting rights, but that is not the only thing that has changed, not the only bills that have passed this year. There are a number of bills as they impact healthcare access. Some of the biggest ones is that, of course, Medicaid has been expanded in North Carolina with the passage of the state budget. That starts December 1st, 2023, and expands coverage to about 600,000 North Carolinians who didn't have healthcare coverage before. And regardless of how you feel about the issues listed here, it is also the case that, of course, a bill like SB 20 went into effect that bans abortion after 12 weeks in North Carolina. And there's a bill, HB 808, that bans gender-affirming medical care for young LGBTQ plus North Carolinians. So major changes for many North Carolinians in terms of their healthcare access. And my friends, if you are furiously writing this down, one, I promise you will get all these slides afterward, and two, we will also have time for a lot of questions after this for folks who want to talk about it. So please do keep that in mind. There's also major changes coming to public education. With the passage of the state budget, which happened about a month ago, there's now more than $500 million that will be budgeted for opportunity scholarships, which are also known as vouchers for private and charter school education. How many of you have heard about this legislation? Yeah, a good number of you. This is a major change. Regardless of how you feel about public education, I imagine we'll hear that from you tonight. This would double the current funding that's available to North Carolina families to go to private schools or charter schools. And this bill would probably cost traditional public schools up to $200 million each year by 2026 to 2027. In a way that many counties who are in the northeastern North Carolina region, not far from you, have indicated would result in the closing of schools in many parts of the state. This also interacts with what is known as the Leandro Plan, an ongoing court battle that basically says that North Carolina is failing to provide a sound basic education to all its children, and says that more money is needed to be allocated, and that plan is currently not being funded, still contested in the courts, and currently not being funded under our state budget. All right, everybody still with me? We're going on. All right. It's a lot of information, but we also have a state budget, which I've mentioned a couple of different times. Now, this state budget was a couple months overdue, as I'm sure many of you heard, and it was a couple months overdue, really over whether we were going to legalize casino gambling in the state. So if you were following that issue, that is not legalized here in North Carolina. They took casino gambling out of it, but they do have a 2-year spending that will commit the state to some pretty sharp tax cuts. There will be a reduction in the income tax rate, I think by the end of the decade, to about 2.99%. And it will also eliminate the corporate income tax. The combined tax cuts will mean about $8 billion less in revenue each year, potentially as much as $13 billion each year, depending on certain fiscal forecasts. Which represents about 20% of what the state funds in its general fund through these 2-year budgets. So a pretty sizable change in the amount of revenue that is available to the state to invest in things like public institutions of higher education, schools, parks, and housing, and the like. It also, of course, expands Medicaid, as we talked about. This state budget is also something that regardless of the substantive details of what was in the budget, it really took place without public hearings, without public comment, and when it was introduced, was passed in about 24 hours, 24 to 36 hours, if I'm correct, Sailor, from when the details of the budget were made public to when they voted on the budget, which I didn't have that time to read a 650-page document. I cannot imagine that anybody in this room did too, unless it was your job, of which then you should be up here and I shouldn't be talking. Of course, we also have a bunch of changes to the environment. We were talking about this a little bit before we came here, the changes to the environment and the severe weather that comes from that. Two big pieces of legislation that were passed this year include the North Carolina Farm Act. The North Carolina Farm Act does a lot of different things, but I think the most concerning element we wanted to put out is that it removes protections and environmental protections from about 2.5 million acres of wetlands in the state in a way that essentially worsens the water quality in a state where we're already dealing with the presence of forever chemicals in a lot of our drinking water sources, especially in places like Wilmington. Additionally, through another bill called the Regulatory Reform Act, one key provision that was snuck into that bill was an expedition of a proposed pipeline, oil pipeline extension that would go through the areas around Rockingham and Alamance County, North Carolina. It's known as the Mountain Valley Pipeline Southgate Extension, of which there is kind of a coalition of property owners, traditional Native American lands, and environmental activists who are concerned about this bill. But that was passed this year as well. And then for many who are paying attention, there was a slate of bills that change basically how we treat LGBTQ North Carolinians in this state, including a big one that I know is roiling a lot of public schools who are trying to figure out how to actually implement it and work it into their schools, is a bill known as a Don't Say Gay law that requires schools to tell parents if their children ask to use different names or different pronouns at school, and also restricts discussion about gender identity, sexual activity, or sexuality in schools. So a number of big changes that will change the daily operation of our schools. So, okay, that was a lot of information. But we think it's important to go through that, and like I said, we'll share this information with you because your lives going forward in 2023, especially as these maps are drawn, and into 2024, all of our lives are going to be dramatically different because of this legislation. There will, of course, be another legislative session next year that will continue to change things even further. So at this time, taking in that information, this is where we like to shut up because I can only hear myself speak for so long. And this is where we like to start turning it over to you all to answer the questions that you have, but also to give individuals time to speak and to talk about their perspective on these issues and what they care about. Now, a couple of ground rules and guidelines for how we conduct this portion. The first and foremost thing is that this is a nonpartisan space. We are primarily focused on people's experiences, the issues they care about, and we want everybody, no matter how conservative, how liberal, how in the middle that you are in this room, to share what your opinion is. The primary goal of that is because we want to capture and we want to be able to share both through video, but also through written presentation with the lawmakers who represent this area, so that they can get a sense of those who came tonight and what they care about. So primarily we want to be nonpartisan, and we ask that everybody in this room hold to remaining nonpartisan, focus on issues, not parties. That's the first thing. The second thing is that each person will have about 2 minutes to speak. We'll have a handy dandy, what's the word I'm looking for, clipboard that will indicate to you when you have 1 minute left, when you have no time left, and just so as many people can get the chance to speak as possible, we ask that you adhere to those 2 minutes. Final thing that we'll share that helps to guide people is I was talking to somebody here at the beginning who wasn't quite sure if they wanted to speak. And so if you are thinking through whether you want to share your opinion or perspective or even ask a question, there's kind of 2 prompts that we share with people to help them start to think about it. The first is if your state lawmaker was here now, what would you want them to know? what would you want to say to them? What would be important for you to get on the record to lawmakers who represent you? That's one prompt. And the second prompt, which is, you know, I was gonna say, we'll already get you up here, sir. We'll get you. No, I'm just kidding. The second being the question that we ask everybody, which is also, what do you want for the future of North Carolina? Because we can talk a lot about the things that we don't like. Lord knows I do it. Especially if I hit a bar after this, I'll be talking about all the things I don't like all night long. But we also want to be thinking about what are the things we want to change? What are the things you'd like to see be different in North Carolina for not only yourselves, but your kids and those who come after us? So, everybody on the same page with me? Everybody feeling good? I know this is a group, I see it in your eyes that this is a group that's got a lot that it wants to say. So I can't wait to hear what you all do have to say. So I know that our friends from the League of Women Voters are interested in speaking first to share some of their thoughts on the record, so I will turn it over to them first. We then have a couple of people who indicated here that they would like to speak. And once we exhaust that list, we will then open it up for people to raise their hands, and also for a conversation to take place from that point on. So I will turn it over to you all to come up next, or who are speaking on behalf of the league. And then we will just take it from there, folks, and that will guide really the rest of our time. Come on through.
Okay. I don't know that I'm doing at all what you just asked us to do.
No, that's fine. It's a town hall for you to say what you want to say.
I'm Lorelei DiBernardo. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Dare County. We are also nonpartisan, and I just wanted to announce we empower voters and we defend democracy. That's our motto. And one of the things that I'm proudest about in being part of the league is that we schedule and sponsor forums, candidate forums, every election. And this year we have 6 towns, incorporated towns in Dare County with contested elections, and they kick off tomorrow night. Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. Next week, after that, there'll be a few more. I just wanted to make that announcement, say I'm proud of that, and it's an opportunity for you all to meet and hear your candidates if you live in one of those towns. Hear what they think, what they prioritize, what's important to them, and so that when you vote, it's not because they look cute or because they belong to a certain party. It's because you agree with what they stand, and that's really important. We have these cards. I'm going to ask all of you, if you want one, please take one. I have a little smear over here. On this side, it shows we're at Southern Shores on the 2nd, tomorrow night. We're in Manio on the 3rd, which is Tuesday. We are in Kill Devil Hills on Wednesday. Thursday, we're in Nag's Head. On the 10th of October, we'll be in Kitty Hawk. And then on the 12th, we'll be in Duck, our last one. Yay! On the back of this card, it has the key dates. It has the dates for early voting. It also has the dates of the election, which is November 7th. We also have the dates for your absentee ballots and last day to register. So all that information is on this card. Plus this whole big thing about the need to have a photo ID this year for the first time again to vote. So it lists what are the most common and many of the acceptable IDs. And did you know that that you can go to the Board of Elections and they will issue you their own voter ID if you don't have a North Carolina driver's license, a North Carolina ID card, or a passport, among others that are on the list card. So please get one of the cards. You'll have all the details you need, and this was a plug. Thank you. Thank you.
Was there anybody else from the league that was going to speak next? Okay. I didn't know if you were being updated. Come up.
My computer is
No, you're totally fine. Thank you so much, my friend. The next person that we had who signed up to speak, to share their opinions and thoughts was Jason Borley. There we go. Hey, round of applause. It is hard to be the first one to go. So, where's the other? Take it away.
So, one thing that you left out on the state budget thing is probably why a lot of folks from Manio are here. And if we had some state or even county representation, you know, I know we appreciate a voice there. Some huge implications that we don't, you know, regardless of outcome, we've got no transparency and no accountability, and that's what we need. It's painful to see something come through so abruptly, like you mentioned, 24 hours. No one actually read that. I don't know how that got in there, and that's a huge problem because either you do know how it got in there and you're being dishonest about it, or you don't know how to get it. You don't know how it got in there, and you're showing some incompetence. And we haven't seen anybody take a stand and show their position on it. And that's what we need. We need some accountability, transparency, and integrity. So that's what I would tell someone if they're here.
And
Yes, ma'am.
People may not know exactly what you're talking about.
So some quick cliff notes, I guess. And maybe as I butcher the cliff notes, that'll actually get Malcolm up here to talk and provide better detail. But you know, within the budget, we've had this, what I'll call an attack on democracy, where if the county has an affordable housing project that they want to do, they don't have to follow a lot of things like 160D that we just had to pay all this money to come up the code on. They don't have to follow the due process there. They don't have to follow the voice of the citizens and do a public hearing. And you know, that's the quick cliff notes on it. And then furthermore, if we have utilities within a mile of that area, then we have to provide that. And that's something that's been highly valued in the previous or preliminary conversations. And you know, I don't want to speak for the people of Manio, but you know, it's something where we've done a lot for affordable housing over the years, and I think that the town has shown that they want to do things the right way. And this is kind of been a sneaking around, stab in the back. I think a lot of people feel. That's how I feel, and that's what I'm speaking for right now.
Is this a town, Manny, or a county?
It's the county. It's Dare County. In Dare County, the county doesn't have to essentially follow the process if they're doing anything that's under the guise of affordable housing.
anybody else have any questions for Jason? Not to put you on the spot. But,
Yeah, no.
it sounds like it's not cool to get to. Did you have a
Well, I
question?
just wanted to piggyback on what he said.
Oh yeah, would you like to speak?
Sounds like she's
Yes.
next.
Yeah, come on up. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
So I really just wanted to piggyback on what Jason had to say, because the rights that are taken away from us, all the municipalities, the 6, and specifically Manio, are huge. And of course it's specifically affordable housing. It's the $35 million that had been appropriated by the state. But I just want you to really understand what we're talking about, what rights are removed. So, first of all, there is no requirement for a public hearing. Those are the voices of every resident in Manio to come forward and say their piece about a development that could be in place for 100 years or more, that will impact everyday life. So, no public hearing. The second thing is, there is no requirement to meet any zoning codes. Whoops. Okay, I'll go fast. No zoning codes. So our zoning codes matter to us. That's why Manio looks the way it does. All the height restrictions, you know, the dark sky, all of that, none of that would matter. The other thing is, the planning board would not review or provide recommendations to the board of the commissioners. And there would be no, so that's huge. That's also another level. And then the other thing is, your elected people, the people you went voted for would not have an ability to weigh in on what happens with the development. Those are enormous rights that would be stripped from us, the people. So to me, that is a threat to democracy.
Thank you. Ma'am, could you share your name? Share your name. I forgot that.
I'm Sherry Butcher Wickstrom. I'm a commissioner and manual.
Thank you very much. I know we've got a few other folks who wanted to speak next. I think Macy and Jamie, but was there anybody who also wanted to speak on this particular issue? Yeah, feel free to come on up, sure. And folks, please feel free to also say your name and introduce yourself as well.
I'm Todd Pozzolo. I live here in Manio, also a commissioner. But one of the first things that caught my ear when he spoke was civic engagement. And it's always the problem because civic engagement ought to happen before these problems happen. The bill we were talking about, 247, on page 509 in the budget, it's not just huge for Manio because we feel like they're trying to attack our sewage capacity, which they very could well, or that maybe not. But what I think is that, it's not just a Manio problem, it's a Dare County, Nags Head, Manio, Kill Devil Hills, Southern Shores. I mean, it's all of our problem, and that word brings me back to civic engagement. We've got to step out in front of these problems before they get passed, because once they're passed, as we all know, it's too late. We can stop it maybe down the road, but as of now, I think it's just a good idea for the people of Dare County, for all of us to tell our constituents, you need to get out, and you have got to get out in front of it before it's too late. 1 minute. Representative, I'm disappointed that our other representatives did not come tonight, because this could have been a great time for them to kind of clear the air with all of us. And I'm not casting doubt, but I do have my doubts on them. And I'm very disappointed in some of these people that are our leaders. The housing problem is a county issue. I mean, it is. It's something that needs to be divided within all the towns. And Manio, for the most part, provides more affordable housing than any town in Dare County. And I can promise you that. I think Nags Head, Kill Devil Hills, maybe Southern Shores and Duck, they might not have the space to do it, but I do believe the counties that can do it need to work together, since the Dare County Commissioners have batted zero so far. And it's not completely their fault, but I think if the towns come together, we might be able to get something put together to solve this problem once and for all. And really, that's what I've got to say. We all love Manio. We all love Dare County. But I'll tell you, it's getting in front of the ball before it's too late, because we have a lot of people in here in Manio. It's like, why did that get built? Well, it got built because it was zoning, and it had already been passed. If that zoning had been changed before, we might have been able to prevent it. So I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you guys coming out and getting everybody together, and that's what I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Is it true that this provision was put in the budget just for Dare County?
Correct.
Only Dare County?
Correct. As of now.
Wastewater.
Now, I feel that it got put in at the Senate level. How it got put in at the civil level could be any of the people that were just spoken about tonight. But I also think Dare County has a lobbyist, so somebody knows who put it in. And I'm actually really surprised that it hadn't come out who did it. And I'm disappointed, and I think we all are as Dare County residents, that for some reason Dare County got pulled out and chosen. But anyway, thank you all so much for coming out tonight, and thank you guys for putting it on.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
It looks like maybe you have one more question from your comment.
So Todd, let's put some perspective on this. How big is Manio? How many square miles is Manio?
What, we got like 2 square miles from, I mean, a lot of people that aren't familiar with Manio, I mean, it's small. We have, Roanoke Island is huge. There are also spaces, you know, that I think Malcolm is willing to speak about. There's ways to combat the problem, but I think it has to do with all of us joining forces and doing it together and coming up with a way. So, and I think it's possible. But what's happened so far hadn't happened, and I think we're all tired of hearing about it and just want to see it get it done. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, that's what we're here to do. We're here to shine a light on it. It sounds like you wanted to continue on this topic. Is that right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, come on up. Come on front. And then we'll keep moving. Don't hold it too close to you, because then everybody. I have learned that.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Michelle Lewis, and I came tonight because I was hoping that some of our elected officials are here. So to those of you who are elected officials and you're here, thank you. But I was hoping that some of the folks on the screen would be here, and weren't on the street because that some of them were actually in town today, so they could have been here. So it's imperative that we all take the time to reach out to these people, not to assume that our neighbor is going to do it or that someone else is going to do it. Because as we know, sometimes when we assume, we, look bad. We'll say that, right? And, when I saw this special provision for Dare County in the budget, the thing that I immediately thought about was the environment, because for those of you who don't know, I'm also an environmentalist. And when we look at zoning regulations, and one of the reasons we have them, part of it is for environmental protection and to make sure the burden of the harm isn't heaped upon the heads of the most marginalized people in our communities, who are often poor people, who are often Black and brown people. And I don't know if you know it or not, the environmental movement actually started here in North Carolina. That's a lecture for another day. Because I didn't get up here to do that, but I wanted to say, there are federal protections that will help us protect the environment, that will help us protect the wetlands, that I think supersede some of what the state has said it wants to do. But we're going to have to be vigilant, because some of these things you have to look for, but there is precedent in other locations, in other states, where federal regulations actually did supersede what the state had said it was going to do. So I'm here, I'm on the ground doing the work, and if you have any questions, I'm easy enough to reach. You can usually spot me riding around town on my bicycle. It's increased my run time. But to the elected officials who aren't here, who had the opportunity to come and hear from the members of the community tonight, I want to say shame on you. Shame on you for not being willing to come and hear from the people.
And folks, we'll now start moving to folks who want to raise their hands. So would you like to come up next, sir? And then we'll go to our friends Macy and Jamie after that, and then we'll keep moving.
And for those who want to reach out, as that fine gentleman was, there is a camera on this to take a picture. We can email them as soon as tonight.
And that'll be one of our closing pieces.
Malcolm, it's only 2 minutes.
I asked Todd how did they hold him to that 2 minutes. I got this card, and it says, "We're here to unite." And that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm Malcolm, from Manio. I'm 68 years old, and I'm an old warrior, and I'm glad we're here to unite. And I want to do that hand game, and if you would indulge me. How many people would like their community that doesn't have a house, an affordable place to live, to have one? Raise your hand. Let anybody raise their hand. How many of y'all would like that community right next door to you? Well, I'm surprised that was a trick question, really. But that's the problem. And to the legislators, something they did was provide Dare County $35 million to start addressing that problem. And I want to thank him for that. Now, I watched the ball game yesterday. I'm not a football guy. I'm redneck. I like to do the hunting and fishing stuff. But it was Auburn and Georgia. Georgia beat Auburn. Why do I say that? My wife's from Alabama. She likes Auburn. Their team lost. And I'm sure there was a lot of quarterbacking on how they could have played that team, how they could have played that game better to win. Their team was distraught. They made mistakes. I'm going to say mistakes have been made in handling the issue of housing in Dare County. I've been in that issue for over 30 years. I have failed miserably at trying to advocate for a place for people to live. Not only to rent, but to buy. And I'm not coming before the community on a tour, which I'm starting tomorrow at the Dare County Board of Commissioners, because I believe that we should be providing solutions. And I have a solution, and I want to share it in the community. And it's Buffalo City. Does anybody know about Buffalo City? How many people know where Buffalo City is? How many people know how many people lived in Buffalo City over 100 years ago? Over 3,000. Over 3,000, and that's not talking about Beachland or Sandy Ridge. They had a post office. They had a bar. They had a grocery store. They had a doctor's office. They had minorities. They had Russians. They didn't have Bitcoin, and I don't know what they called it, but they had their own coin. Okay? So what you'll hear me go around your community is talk about uniting for our community, for those that are less fortunate than we are, in providing them a home. So thank you all for coming out tonight, and that's my subject.
And then, Macy, if you want to go up next as you're coming, I just want to say it's powerful for me personally to hear this because, you know, I live in Durham, and we've been everywhere from Durham to Tarboro, North Carolina, not far from Rocky Mount, and the issues that you're talking about, that all of you are talking about with providing housing, is every single part of the state. It doesn't matter if it's 500 people in North Carolina town or it's 1 million in Raleigh. It is everywhere a crisis that's exploding. So I'm appreciative of hearing y'all speak, and I think Macy or Jamie, you were coming up next.
Thank you. And to what I want to share is a little bit redundant, but just bear with me, and thanks for your time. And speaking of, yes, Sanderson is in town and was enjoying a soft shell BLT 48 hours ago. So wish he could be here with us. My name is Jamie Wegner from Southern Shores. I bring an anthem of communication, knowledge, and messaging to our House and State of Representatives of North Carolina and to our local representatives in between. This anthem involves the pipeline, root causes, and everything and everyone in between. We recognize that we are warped in a time frame, and in this political gamut, that collectively the citizens of this country have become fed up with the lack of accountability for those in power. This lack of confidence that people have in the system is a big problem, and it's defined by our representatives in power. There's a lot of connection between exposing absurdity and exposing hypocrisy. What's the point? The point is that this is a relentless fight. They always talk about the arch of the moral universe is long, but it bends back towards justice. It doesn't bend towards justice by gravity. You have to bend it. We have to bend it. And there's a bunch of people trying to bend it back. And you use every tool in your arsenal, and none of them will be the one thing. There is no one solution or remedy. There is room for these incremental shifts and sometimes collective one-time swoops. Our country is held together by hundreds of really talented legislative aides relentlessly trying to take a course of action, and by the thousands of grassroots activists, everyday people who are trying to remain integrated in some capacity into a glimpse of what it takes to understand various pipelines and also have access to them. And that's where I try to continue to show up, being a younger voice, hoping that more people my age, younger, a little bit older, stay in this together. That's part of my big motivation. These everyday organizations and everyday people are blocked by a moat of lobbyists and moneyed interests that prevent the people in that building from doing the work that best benefits the people outside of these buildings. That's the process, and we have to use every tool that we have to permeate that force field. The force field around this moat is made up of not honest brokers, it's moneyed interests, it's lobbyists, and it's people who are weaponizing misinformation and disinformation injected into our everyday livelihoods. Moving forward and on this tone and understanding, it's not to say representatives aren't all skewed and profound in profound successes and examples like Medicaid expansion and in the state of North Carolina. As we know, on December 1st, 2023, this year giving more than 600,000 North Carolinians access to health care. 200, how many in Dare County? 2,000 of those will be coming from Dare County. I do have to finish up. I had more to say, so maybe if we have time towards the end, I can finish. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. Governor Cooper states, finally expanding Medicaid in North Carolina is a monumental achievement that will extend health insurance to the people who need it. This means better health care, including those with mental health and substance abuse disorders, which we see people throw those taglines around everywhere, that we're suffering, those numbers are increasing. Well, let's get to the root cause. And we're looking at our representatives to help us get to the root cause rather than pinpoint each other on one another. Enough is enough with that. Every single day we have to worry about which liberties our Republican representatives and representatives as a whole are going to gut next. Examples like bodily autonomy and basic reproductive and health care that is right for you and your families. To the stripping of our public school systems rather than reconstructing them and adding more value towards our teachers, better pay, better outcomes for the children of North Carolina, the futures of all of our educations. I'm going to have to pause here because this thing is going back and forth on me. I had more to say. I don't have things memorized yet, but again, thanks for bearing with me. Appreciate it.
Hi, Macy. Jamie and I were on the phone today as I was driving my oldest to and from Virginia to play lacrosse, and she was like, "Oh, enough already, you two. Like, stop yelling." But I can't help but feel this constant pull from one extreme to another. It's hard to escape the heavy as a woman, as a parent, as an empathetic human being. I fear that my children's rights to a real education might be taken away. I fear for their safety in schools and that my daughters will have less opportunity for bodily autonomy. I fear that my children will experience elections that are neither free nor fair. It hurts to think about the possibility that love is love will only be for a select few. Here and now in our community, we are living a real-life affordable housing crisis. We witnessed all 6 municipalities' historic unified outcry to the stripping of local decision-making power. We currently have limited to no affordable childcare options, 6 to 12-month waiting lists for a doctor's appointment, extreme limited field space for youth sports, yet a growing abundance number of pickleball courts for adults. We are seeing our small businesses stretched thin, our community nonprofits set higher and higher fundraising goals to meet the ever-increasing needs in our community. The current out-of-control sense of feeling is both palpable and paralyzing. Real-life cost to limited proactive planning is expensive and damaging and hits our marginalized and most vulnerable citizens the most. From one extreme to another, I want to acknowledge champions of good. We have really, really good champions here in Dare County. We see them in our schools, creating a rock your school era, welcoming in guest speakers to talk about voting rights, and celebrating National Hispanic Month. We see them in support for GoFundMes for local families going through really hard times, and we see them in the huge number of volunteers who show up to coach, lead clubs, donate their time, the ever-increasing number of fundraising events. We see them in our local libraries standing up for stories, and I quote, to liberate voices that need to be heard and scenes that need to be seen. We see them in our 30-plus community nonprofits who wear so many hats, fulfilling their missions, being the weavers of the safety nets here in our county, and being the lone table that brings people together to focus on the cause first. The weight they bear in Dare County is immense, but they embody the empathy, strategic planning, and grace that is what Foals are made of. We have to be able to remove the negative stigma of the word politics in our community in Dare County. We cannot stop at just talking about the good we see and the bad we wish we didn't. Understanding the relationship of the good and bad to budget and policy, and closing the loop to think critically about the decisions we made during election time that are the cause to these effects. Working to thoughtfully move the needle forward in ways that are amendable to individual bandwidths is vital to a healthy community where differences are respected and common ground can be achieved. Shifting to a direction here in Dare County, placing priorities and specific issues over party at the ballot box.
Thank you, Macy. Friends, we are cooking with gas now, though I will say, every time I beat my dad at pickleball, it is really a moment for me. Not in the expense of our kids, I promise. Friends, at this point, a lot has been talked about, a lot of good conversations going. If you want to speak next, just raise your hand. We'll go to you next. Yeah, come on up. And we are about 7:36. We'll have time for about 5 more so speakers, and then we'll close out with the next episode. Thank you.
My name is Charlie Parker. I have 3 things. I'm going to try and do it in less than a minute. State law 749, in there a section says that the legislature can remove one of the 8 members and replace them with someone else. It doesn't say that you replace them with the same political party. Words matter. Number 2, the legislature wants to reduce income taxes. In the past they did that, and they also raised sales taxes. The last time they raised the sales tax, one was on auto repairs. People who have new cars don't have auto repairs. If anybody ever saw the van I used to drive around and deliver in the mail, you know that it went to Pew's Auto Care every month. And within 2 months, I paid more in sales tax through Pew's than I would ever have saved in the income tax. And the last one is, North Carolina is one of the worst states through the Freedom of Information Act to get public records. They just now said that, you can conceal the official correspondence and documents from the public of our legislatures. So, if we were trying to find out who ramrodded it in that thing about Dare County, we can't get public information to find out who talked to any of our legislatures. This is criminal. So those are my 3. Did I do it in a minute?
No, you should be doing my job for me, because that last piece you said is something I should have mentioned from the beginning. I'm glad you did. And thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I did read 749 from beginning to end.
Which is also more than I did. So that's absolutely right. And so I know that sounds a little bit extreme on its face, but it is true. The state budget allows lawmakers to shield their own records from the public. So you are exactly right. When asked in response about how this happened, I believe the official response from Speaker Morris-Saylor was they didn't know and passed it anyway. And of course, this will be subject to litigation, likely from news outlets, but it is still it's brazen. And an attack on our ability to just have basic information about what our lawmakers are doing. Yeah. Who would like to speak next? Yes, come on up.
Well, thank you guys for coming. My league friends who are here know what I'm going to talk about, which is the Equal Rights Amendment, and the fact that we don't have one in North Carolina. Now, did you know that North Carolina did not vote for women to be able to vote until state number 49. We were the 49th to say, okay, women can vote. Alabama was the last. We always said, thank you for not making us the last. We have been to see these guys. I've been to Raleigh 4 times to plead with them. We have a bill right now in Raleigh to simply have the state give women equal rights. It sits there in committee where they never trot it out. I just want to talk to you guys. Please get that thing out of the cobwebs and vote, because I think it's just plain chicken if they won't go on record. You got to get me out of it. Thank you.
And remind us your name.
Oh, I'm Judy Lotus, and I live in Duck, but my sister has moved down, and we're both moving to Manteo.
So your elected officials are here that you'll get to know. Moving to Manteo. Thank you so much. Folks, we have time for a few more people who would like to speak next, if you've got something you want to say. Yeah, come on up.
Jennifer Parson, and this is a statewide issue, and I don't have any notes, and I won't even take a minute. And that is that I noticed with my daughter going to school in Raleigh that the most talented teachers left the state because we pay our teachers so poorly. And our students are the future. And we have a wonderful, well, it's early college, and we have a wonderful community college, as you can see. The system apparently is the envy of the rest of the country. And we have a fabulous state university system. But what about our children between kindergarten and 12th grade? When you have talent that cannot stay here because they're not being paid commensurate with contiguous states. I saw several of her favorite teachers move to Virginia. Yes, because of the salaries. So I just want to make that clear for the legislators. Put the money towards your teachers.
Amen.
Part of what they were eventually pretty much forced to do, ma'am, in the state budget is they did raise the starting salary for teachers from $37,000 to $39,000, but nobody needs me to tell you that that is not even close to what would be required to afford average 2-bedroom apartment rent anywhere in the state. So it did raise, but to what extent? And similarly, we've been facing in North Carolina a really extreme bus driver shortage, and that still hasn't been fully addressed through the state budget that passed. So thank you for raising that. Anybody else that want to take the time to share their perspective? Don't be shy.
You want some more?
We'll give it a chance to see if we'll come back to you. We'll give you a chance to see if anybody else would like to. All right. Okay. Okay. Were there a few more points you wanted to share, sir? And then we'll start to close out the event from there.
My second minute.
That's right. You didn't only take a minute.
The legislature has a new secret police. They have the Joint Legislation Commission on Governmental Operations. They can empower to investigate executive branch agencies. Everybody participating is under an automatic and all-encompassing gag order. They are empowered to charge people with crimes. Hello? Is this the Inquisition? Our Board of Elections will tell you this one. The budget officially bans the State Board of Elections from joining ERIC, a multi-state organization that helps states keep voting rolls clear of duplication and errors. Duh! And now they got one where they're also, they can harass the judiciary because they have a new standing commission that'll look at them. Everything so far that I have seen in this budget does not support the people. And that's what we're all here for. We're not Democrats, Republicans, Independent. We're the people. And our legislature is supposed to work for us, not for themselves.
Amen.
And I think that's the right place to end it. Thank you, sir. that is the perfect place to end it. And we've got, now as we close this out, just a few things about where we go next from here. One, I want to thank you all for speaking. Now, obviously, there is a world in which our government should be here, should be the one holding this, should be doing it under public funds, should have it broadcast. It should not be this duo here, thing one and thing two, having to come all the way out to Emmanuel to talk about this. But we believe that it's important to get it on the record. So we're going to ask you to do a couple things. You don't have to do this now, and you'll also get these slides. But if you want to take a photo of the contact information for your representatives here, we encourage you to do so now. And our only ask is whatever you want to say, that you take the time, and I'm sure many of you have done this before, but take the time to share what you heard here tonight, especially if you heard something new and that you want them to know. Send them that message and talk to them about how, I think a number of you mentioned it, how you wish they were here to hear exactly what had been shared tonight. So our one ask of you, whether you do it in the email you'll get from me later this week, or tonight, is to send a message to these fine folks about what they missed tonight. That's the first big thing. We'll give folks a few moments to snap a photo of that if they're doing so. And then, second, I believe all of you have in front of you a couple of cards. One of those cards is what the gentleman Malcolm, is that right, was showing to you that says, what do you want for the future of North Carolina on the back. If you didn't speak tonight because you're not as comfortable speaking in front of folks, but you've got something you want to say, we highly encourage you to fill that out. The purpose behind this is that we're essentially putting together a mosaic of the state of everybody who's been to these events and compiling what it is they want for the future of North Carolina. We'd love to hear from you. There is also a note card that is on the desk that we use to collect just questions that people have that we've been collecting from each event. We have this gray magic box of mystery here that we'd ask you just to drop those cards in on your way out as you leave tonight. Before we close out, I just want to ask if anybody has any remaining questions. There's a lot of content talked about tonight. If there's anything else that you want to share or ask a question about, or perhaps an upcoming event that, like our friends at the League did, that you want to advertise, now is the time. Yeah, come on, Tiana.
I was just thinking about, like some of the elected officials were saying, we have to get ahead of what's coming. In order to fight some of these things that have been put in the budget, is that lawsuits? Is that the next step to stop them from doing that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and there's a couple different responses to it. One, the first thing is, I'm sure there's somebody in this room tonight that you didn't know before you came here. Is that fair enough to say? Well, our friends at the League of Women Voters are going to, basically, I know you all have received a bunch of emails from me before you were coming to this event, or you shared your contact information. So you'll have the opportunity both to plug in with the work we do at the statewide level, but also here with the local league and other civic organizations. And the reason I mention that is because joining and uniting with other like-minded people is one of the first things that we're doing. Doing this tour is about bringing more people into this so that we shed light on exactly how our state governors are working for us and bring more people into the work. So that's one. But now to your specific question, litigation is one possible tool. So Common Cause, if folks weren't familiar with us beforehand, we have been involved in a number of lawsuits against the voting maps in this state. We have consistently alleged that they have been drawn either for partisan manipulation or for manipulation along racial lines. You may have heard of a case called Rucho v. Common Cause that went to the U.S. Supreme Court in 2019. That came from us here in North Carolina, as well as a case that was at the U.S. Supreme Court last year called Moore v. Harper. And that is part of the work that we do as well. So when we believe that there is no recourse, especially in a world in which lawmakers are trying to shield even their basic public records from us, we do go the litigation route. Now, with the elections bills and the democracy bills redistricting, it still remains to be seen, but that is one avenue that we take. But otherwise, it looks exactly like this room. And like the commissioner said, it's about the civic engagement piece that we're hoping to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, whip up some energy around. all across the state, and that's a big part of it as well, especially heading into 2024. And we're going to be heading to Hillsborough and Orange County next, later this week. Any other questions or anything else people want to advertise? Yes.
Put the slide up again, the slate of hate.
Yes.
That went by really fast.
Yes, absolutely.
There was so much hate. I just had to get to all the hate. Sorry about that, yo.
And if you haven't, and just so you know, if you haven't shared your email with us yet and you're comfortable doing so, I will send you all an email with everything that you saw tonight as well.
One more event. Can I speak just one?
Yes, and just really quick
Yeah,
before that, I want to do one last thing before Sailor shares one more event. We usually do this at the beginning. I forgot that it's my fault. But just for a moment, if you are a local elected official or you hold a position in community leadership and you are here tonight, if you'd be willing to just stand up very briefly so we can give you another round of applause and acknowledge that you came tonight, we really appreciate doing so. Yeah. Go ahead. We really do appreciate it. And with that, we'll turn it to Sailor, and then we'll let you get back to Sunday Night Football.
Now I'm screwed. I want to answer your question, too. So litigation got a little bit more difficult in the great state of North Carolina with the change in the state Supreme Court. Normally a place where we would go to challenge, for example, partisan or racial gerrymanders, that may be foreclosed now because of elections. Elections have consequences. So I want to make it perfectly clear that we are redistricting right now. It is 2023. The reason we are doing that is on a slide here. I won't go into detail about it because I hear there's a football game. But what I want to say is that this night in Dare County kicks off another night. And that is that we are about to kick off a statewide community education tour. First, we get you riled up and holding your lawmakers accountable. And then if they were to gerrymander your maps, there is one solution to that is not the courts. The way you break gerrymanders is by breaking voting records. Amen? Mm-hmm. So the best way to do that is to navigate the new laws that are coming down the pike. We rhymed this. In 2023, there's voter ID. In 2024, there's more. And so that training and these booklets is to get you ready for 2023 and 2024. So we will be circling back with your friends in Dare County and coming back for 75-minute training to teach every single person in Dare County how to vote in 2024 and navigate not only voter ID, but the new districts that we will inevitably have and the election changes that we will see in 2024. Experts are saying that in 2020 and 2022, we had record voting in the great state of North Carolina, particularly in 2020, over 75% of us voted. They are predicting 80% in 2024. That can break a gerrymander, friends. And two, it can't if nobody knows how to vote in the great state of North Carolina. So after Gino takes a nap, we will lay him down, put him in that incubator, and then we will hit the road again to all 100 counties. And we'd like to come to Dare County as one of the first counties that we have.
Woo!
So we will be in touch. This is not the end of the tour, and it's not the end of the tour even this year. But please take a look at your resource. And the next time we hold an event here in Dare County, just like we say, grab every human being you know and put them in the car when we go vote. Grab every human being you know, put them in the car, and bring them to that event. Is that all right?
All right.
And if we have to fill it and have standing room only, that's just old news for Gino. He's used to standing room. But we would love, we're going to kick off the United Sea Community Education Tour tomorrow in Onslow County. Onslow has the lowest election funding in the state and the lowest turnout in the state. Okay? There's correlation there. County commissioners here, County Board of Elections here. Every community education event will have the County Board of Elections here because that is a relationship I want all of you to have. These are not your enemy. This is your best friend in your county to make sure your voice is heard and your vote counts. Amen? Okay. Thank you for your time tonight. Do you know anything else?
That's it. Folks, thank you for being here tonight. Make sure you drop your cards off in the Great Magic Box of Mystery. If you got any questions for us, we'll be around. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.